Okay, let's do this one last time. My name is Noah Real, and I am YouTube's one and only video essayist. Well, at least I'm the only person on YouTube talking about the new Spiderverse movie. Yeah, no, not that either. Like every other sane person that has gone to see this movie in the last couple of weeks, I absolutely love Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. There are an endless amount of topics to talk about for this incredible movie. The animation is beyond anything I've ever seen, the emotional beats are strong, the characters are well developed, but best of all, it was just a hype Spider-Man movie. If I were to rank every piece of Spider-Man media, this honestly would be in my top 3, maybe even top 2 all time. That's saying a lot, because since I was a little kid, Spider-Man has always been my favorite superhero. I watched the TV series, read the comics, and even played with the action figures. Some of my earliest memories ever are of watching good old Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 2 with my cousin in the living room. To this day, I still sometimes daydream what it would be like to be Spider-Man. I know I'm not alone in my love for the character. Undoubtedly, Spider-Man is on the list for top 3 most popular superheroes of all time, and by several different metrics, he's number 1. Hollywood knows this, which is why over the last 3 decades, they've pumped the market with web-swinging content galore. This all had me wondering, what is it about Spider-Man, compared to other heroes, that makes him so beloved? I want to explore this and then talk a little bit about how the new Spider-Verse movie really captures the essence of why people care so much about our friendly neighborhood web-slinger. Of course, there will be spoilers for Across the Spider-Verse, and if you haven't seen it, please do. It's great. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that the reason I like Spider-Man so much is that his character just feels so much more real than any of the other many superheroes in DC or Marvel. The story of Spider-Man is designed to be grounded in reality, to feel personal, and great adaptations like Across the Spider-Verse capture that in remarkable ways. While many could point out that the theme of Spider-Man as a whole is the classic tear-jerking Uncle Ben statement, "With great power comes great responsibility," that could really be said about any given superhero or superhero movie. The theme of Spider-Man actually goes one step deeper than these other hero stories. With great responsibility comes great personal cost. Let me repeat that, because I think this is what makes Spider-Man stand out as one of the most inspiring and beloved superhero characters of all time. With great responsibility comes great personal cost. That word personal is very important because most other supers can live their day-to-day superhero lives without much personal cost at all. Batman isn't waking up every day anxious about how he's going to find the money to pay for Alfred's medical bills. Tony Stark isn't worried about how villains knowing his identity will affect his loved ones. Steve Rogers isn't picking up the Sunday morning paper every weekend to see his face splattered with hate. Sure, all of these may have to deal with these problems from time to time, but for Peter Parker or Gwen or Miles, these are constant personal conflicts they have to go through. These other heroes may have world-changing, even multiverse-changing conflicts they have to deal with, but as an audience, that's hard to empathize with. I'm sure having the weight of a big purple alien who wants to wipe out half the universe on your shoulder is super duper hard. But you know what's even harder? Losing your pizza delivery job because you had to stop and save 2 kids from a big stupid truck. Or having to say no to the girl of your dreams because you know loving her will put her in constant danger. Man, that hurts. Like it or not, we as an audience are made up of normal people whose entire world consists of us, our family, friends, coworkers, and a bunch of other NPCs who have their own worlds to think about. That's why it's hard for us to empathize with impersonal conflicts. Most superhero stories do have some sort of personal conflict included in them, and those conflicts are usually the most interesting parts of the films. But what makes Peter Parker stand out from the rest is that he doesn't just have one personal conflict that he's worried about, and then it's quickly resolved in some epic CGI battle. His whole life is surrounded by so many problems on a day-to-day basis, and his story is full of so many tragedies, canon events, that he makes Batman's story look like a children's book. A lot of people absolutely love the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and will defend it like it's the Costco pizza of superhero movies, and more I'm understanding why. Aside from it just being a series we all grew up with, the Sam Raimi trilogy heavily explores the personal life of Peter Parker. He wants to be with his childhood crush Mary Jane, he's trying to help out his old and sick Aunt May, he has a rough and very angry boss, and that's all on top of his Spider-Man duties and the trauma he's still dealing with from the loss of his Uncle Ben. All of these personal troubles are things most of us humans can readily sympathize with. Well, with the exception of being Spider-Man. Only I can relate to that one. One thing I have noticed from the Spider-Man comics I have read is that they often take large breaks from Spidey action to highlight the personal issues going on in Peter's life that are directly affected by his superhero antics. That's why more than once in the comics, and movies too, Peter Parker decides to put down the suit. Few other superheroes would have the temptation to lay down their powers or stop being who they are. unless you're like sad boy hour Thor. For Peter, there are many times where he feels like he has to quit being Spider-Man in order to take care of himself and others around him. In Spider-Man 2, which might be my favorite Spider-Man movie of all time, he realizes that continuing to be the hero makes every issue in his life that much worse. With all of the hate he receives, it's just easier to stop and focus on things that he personally cares about. Again, this is something that we as the audience can empathize with. Our lives aren't as simple as having just one personal conflict at a time. Oftentimes, what makes life the hardest isn't one big thing, but a bunch of little things slowly pushing us off the edge of insanity. And then, when we have that one big canon event, mental breakdown time, baby. Of course, for our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, he never stays down. And that's what makes him so heroic. When, after all of this pressure, all of this failure, all of this tragedy, Spider-Man gets back up and keeps going with his witty and very sarcastic sense of humor, we as the audience feel a sense of hope for our own lives. We too can get back up and keep going. Initially, I was going to talk more about the different adaptations of Spider-Man and how, by following this theme of with great responsibility comes great personal cost, some adaptations are stronger than others, but I think that video would probably be way too long. For now, let's talk about all of this in relation to the movie at hand, Across the Spider-Verse. Across the Spider-Verse is such a well-received movie because it keeps the focus on this personal cost of being a Spider-Person. We as an audience feel for Gwen as she not only deals with her dad hunting her down, but also the immense weight of guilt for what happened to Peter and her feeling of absolutely loneliness in the universe she lives in. Meanwhile, Miles is having to deal with the day-to-day consequences of being a superhero and not telling his parents, fearing what they will think if they find out he's been lying to them this whole time. This is all real and personal, and throughout the movie, especially in the first act, you can feel the emotional weight that Miles and Gwen are carrying. We can all relate and empathize with the struggle of wanting to be accepted and loved. And then, towards the end of the second act, we get the emotional gut punch that Miles is about to go through a life-changing canon event. Losing a father is a very real and personal struggle that we as an audience can readily empathize with, so we understand and even root for Miles as he tries to stop the event from happening. On the other hand, Miguel, Spider-Man 2099, is all about the impersonal. He has convinced all of the Spider people there that the bad things that happened to them needed to happen for the universe to exist and run. Don't get me wrong, it's important to understand that even bad things happen for a good reason, but Miguel has taken it to a place where there's no more empathy for Miles or anyone else. I mean, Gwen almost seems apathetic that her dad is going to have to die because he's a captain. That's so inhuman and impersonal. Remember how I said that it's hard for us to relate with a conflict that's multiversal because our personal worlds are much smaller than that? Miguel is attempting to make the conflict universal, convincing everyone and himself that it's their responsibility to save everyone, no matter the personal cost. Miles, on the other hand, takes us back to the real world that is full of real people with real feelings. If we're being honest, I don't think we as an audience really care about the multiversal stakes as much as we care about Miles and his personal stakes. I don't understand what it would be like for my actions to destroy the whole universe, but it's much easier for me to enter into the pain of losing someone who's close. That's why I and many others left the theater on Team Miles, even though logic may dictate that, if the entire universe is at stake, Miguel is probably the one in the right. The theme of great responsibility and great personal cost is so powerful because it bridges the emotional gap between us normal theater-going people and a spider society filled with people who can shoot sticky webs out of their hands. It's the reason why people love Spider-Man so much, and why Into the Spider-Verse is such a great Spider-Man movie. It grows in us a great deal of empathy for the characters, a quality I'm sure we could all afford to use a little bit more of. Thank you for watching this YouTube video. Trust me, I know there's so much more to talk about with this movie, and if you're mad I just made a whole Across the Spider-Verse video without mentioning Spider-Punk or The Spot, bear with me, I had to pick an angle. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the movie overall, and also what you think I should talk about next. Of course, make sure to also like and subscribe. See ya!